Look, it's a little bit of a cliche, but, I go back to the Will Ferrell, I go back to Days of Thunder. If you're not Days of Thunder, sorry, I go back to Ricky Bobby, right? And
Ricky Bobby, yeah.
Which is
Talladega Nights.
If you're Talladega Nights, thank you. If you're not first, you're last, right? And
Yeah.
so I think generally speaking, early on, you want to go safe. First 2 rounds, I always say, you can't win your league in the first 2 rounds. You can lose it, right? So you want to make sure you don't want to be reaching too much in the first 2 rounds. But after that, I think it's about upside. The way you win your league is with the Cooper Kupps of the world, with the Jonathan Taylors of the world. You win your league with the Jalen Waddles down the stretch, those guys, right? You win your league by picking up Devontae Freeman off the waiver wire, and using him for a couple of weeks to get you through an injury spot. Like, that's how you win your league. Right? And so for me, it is, again, I think a little bit of going safe early, but then it is swinging for the fences. Because, again, no one remembers second except for me, like where I'm just like, oh, yeah, a couple of times that I finished second in the War Room League, which, still rankles me.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of big names. You mentioned a couple of big names, and Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp that won a lot of leagues last year. Who is the player or players that you get asked about the most heading into the 2022 season? Who's got the most buzz around them going into this year?
Well, I mean, the biggest question I get is, who's my fantasy ride or die? Last year was Austin Eckler. Everyone had him as a second-round pick, and I'm like, guys, he's going to be a top 5 fantasy running back this year. And everyone called me crazy, and then what happened? He was a top 5
20 touchdowns later. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, they're not going to use him at the goal line. Didn't get to the goal line. I'm like, yeah, they got Joe Lombardi's their new. They're going to use him like Alvin Kamara, guys. They're going to use him like Alvin Kamara anyway. So I got a lot of questions. Who's my fantasy ride or die? I'm going to announce that on the Rotoworld Draft Guide show Wednesday, August 17th, 8 p.m. on Peacock. He said I am already a company man. But I think there's a lot of questions coming up. Like, so on Football Night in America, I mentioned that I had Jalen Hurts as a top 4 fantasy quarterback. People are asking me about Jalen Hurts. We get a lot of questions about some of the sleeper quarterbacks. Do you like Trey Lance? Do you like Trevor Lawrence? Do you like Justin Fields? Those guys come up. And then I think for me, it's also the unsettled situations. Kansas City's a true enigma, right? With Tyreek Hill gone, is it Juju? Is it MVS? Is it Mecole Hardman? Who's going to be the starting running back? Are we believing once again in Ronald Jones or Clyde Edwards-Helaire? What about Jerick McKinnon? Sky Moore is getting a lot of buzz in that camp. What about Isaiah Pacheco, the running back? So I get a lot of questions about Kansas City. And the other big question I get, and let's talk this through, is who's this year's Cincinnati? Who's this year's kind of an offense is going to, like, we know the Buccaneers are going to be a really good offense, right? We know the Packers are going to be a really good offense. Like, there's a couple offenses that we already know. Kansas City, right? The Chargers we expect to be a very good offense, right?
Proven commodities,
Proven commodities. So let's talk through some of this. So here's some. Look, I think the Chargers can take another step. I think Indianapolis with Matt Ryan under center in that offensive line, I think they're really interesting, right? I mean, think about what Matt Ryan has done as a QB for wide receiver, whether it's Calvin Ridley, whether it's Julio Jones. Like, over the years, Matt Ryan has always been able to support at least one very fantasy relevant wide receiver, one top 15 guy. And so I think Michael Pittman might be a little underrated this year because we know he's going to get a tremendous target share. So I think that's a very interesting offense. I'm high on Philadelphia this year, again, starting with Jalen Hurts and the addition of A.J. Brown, second year of Devontae Smith, second year of the Sirianni offense, and a great offensive line and a pretty good schedule. I'll give you 2 sort of sleeper offenses that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. Number 1 is Minnesota. Okay, the Vikings.
Kevin O'Connell
and Wes Phillips, coming from Sean McVay, coming from a pass-first offense. Like, we know the Vikings put up numbers. Kirk Cousins was a top 12 fantasy quarterback last year. Obviously, Justin Jefferson was awesome. Dalvin Cook was awesome. Adam Thielen. had his moments when he was healthy. So when we saw KJ Osborne emerge, well, all those guys are back, plus a healthy Irv Smith. And they did all that last year, Michael, under Mike Zimmer, who's a defensive coach, but conservative in nature. They were bottom 14 in the NFL. They were bottom 14 in the NFL in passing rate. The Vikings were. And now here comes O'Connell. Here comes Wes Phillips. They're going to throw. That's an offense that's going to air it out. And I think they have better weapons than people realize. Again, with Osborne as a third and Irv Smith, and of course the running backs as well. Look, no one ever gets excited about Kirk Cousins, but he's absolutely solid. And I think that's a sneaky offense that I think is going to score a lot more points than people realize. And I'll also say the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars, it's a ridiculously easy schedule. Everyone, you want to bag on the Jaguars. Okay, I hear you. I get it. It's a franchise that has certainly struggled for a long time. But what is Doug Peterson? Doug Peterson is a former NFL quarterback who came out of the Andy Reid system. He's a pass-first guy. He got an MVP year out of Carson Wentz. And I know, Frank Reich is the guy that always gets the credit. Oh, it was Frank Reich. But then you look at Carson Wentz last year in Indianapolis under Frank Reich, and you're like, you know what, maybe it was Doug Peterson. At any rate, I just think Doug Peterson, former NFL quarterback, former very successful head coach, nowhere to go but up. There's a reason why Trevor Lawrence in 1 year didn't forget how to play football.
Yeah.
This is a guy that coming out of college he's the next Andrew Luck. He's the next Peyton Manning. He's the most NFL-ready prospect to come out of college in the last 20 years, right? He's that guy. And the whole offense was a mess, and Urban Meyer, is bad a coach, is bad a fit, and, whatever. We don't need to beat that horse. But the fact is that under Doug Peterson, and they've given him some weapons, right? So you've got Marvin Jones, but they added Christian Kirk, they added Zay Jones, they added Evan Ingram, they've improved that offensive line. I'm a Commanders fan, so Brandon Scherf down there, he's going to help anchor that line. I don't know. Trevor, I think, and by the way, I think the offense is still going to be crappy. Getting Travis Etienne back as well, healthy. I don't know. I think the Jags are going to be a sneaky good offense, at least for fantasy purposes, because I think they're going to have to throw a lot. A, it'll be their offensive philosophy, and B, just because of the nature of the game, and their defense is going to be bad again this year, or will struggle, I think, in some way.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a lot of good information there. One, look forward to finding out who your real ride or die is, because it sounds like you're really riding with Jalen Hurts. I'd love to hear who you're riding or dying with more than Jalen Hurts at this point. The second part of all that is you love just getting a piece of good offenses. Whether you can get a Justin Jefferson or not, let's say you get a Kirk Cousins. Let's say you're thinking about taking a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson early. Maybe you think twice and say, let me get another solid wide receiver or running back or tight end even here and wait on a Kirk Cousins. That could still win you your league. And as far as Jacksonville goes, you had as much playing time as their stars. So we're still looking forward to seeing what they do this preseason, if the Doug Peterson effect ends up manifesting itself early on or not. Did you have anything else before we moved on? Because I was going to ask you about this first full weekend of preseason action. You had something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know, and Jacksonville looked terrible in the preseason game I think they were going, purposely fairly vanilla, at least especially in that game. And so, there's definitely stuff that you can take away from the preseason, but there's also, you don't want to overreact too much to the preseason. Yeah. We'll talk about preseason here in a second. What I would say, what's really interesting is some of the young wide receivers as well. We talk about sort of questions. I'm all in on Gabriel Davis. He's a very polarizing player in fantasy circles. Half the fantasy industry believes he is overhyped. The other half is sort of it's Gabe Davis season. I'm among the believers that it is Gabe Davis season.
Yeah, no, me too.
I wrote a column on Rotoworld.com, NBCSportsEdge.com called 100 Facts, okay? 100 Facts. And I'll give you I'll give you a couple of facts that I think are pretty interesting about Gabriel Davis, right? Think about this, okay? Last year, he was 98th. He was 98th in targets. Like, that's low, right? 98th in targets. And yet, despite that, and he had 11 different games. Sorry. Hang on. Gabe Davis, 98th in targets last year, 11 different games where he ran fewer than 20 routes. And yet still top 5 in the NFL among wide receivers in end zone targets. When they got in close, despite the fact they had Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley and Stephon Diggs and Dawson Knox, he was still looking for Gabriel Davis. There were only 5 games last year, Michael. And there were only 5 games last year in which Gabe Davis saw at least 5 targets. He scored in 4 of them. And now Emmanuel Sanders is gone. Cole Beasley is gone. Gabriel Davis had another year in the NFL. By the way, still just 23 years old. And it's his 3rd year in the NFL, I believe. So, yes, they added Jamison Crowder, and we expect a bigger role for Isaiah McKenzie. But make no mistake, this is going to be one of, if not the best offenses in football. We know about Allen Diggs, but Gabe Davis is coming. And you saw it in that playoff game against the Chiefs with the 4 touchdowns. Like, I ain't saying he's getting 4 touchdowns every game. What I'm saying is that wasn't a fluke either. That wasn't a fluke.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at those numbers there on the screen, right? 35 for 549, 6 touchdowns. He was 98th in targets. There were 97 other receivers that got more targets than Gabe Davis. 98th in targets, and he put up, almost 6, over 500 yards. And I don't know. I'm in on Gabe Davis in a big way this year.
Same. Yeah, no. And listen, only one team's going to get Josh Allen, but give me anybody that's catching Josh Allen passes. That might be an oversimplification. I just like having pieces of great offenses, to your point about these up-and-coming offenses like Minnesota and Jacksonville that could produce some, as you say, fantasy goodness across the board. All right, so before we wrap this up, let's kind of like turn the page to the first full weekend of preseason. It is Thursday, August 11th. So we get some preseason action tonight, Friday, Saturday. Who are you looking forward to seeing in action, provided they get, somewhat meaningful playing time or aren't a healthy scratch? But who are you looking forward to seeing? Maybe it's a new face in a new place, to stick with this theme of you being at NBC Sports and Peacock now. Who are you looking forward to seeing this weekend?
It's a great question. Ideally, what you're hoping for is a couple of things. You're hoping for some clarity. It's all small sample size, so you're sort of having to read the tea leaves here, but some clarity on roles that we're curious about, right? Like Miami. Miami's a fascinating team this year. Now, again, does Tua play? Does Tyreek play? Probably not. We'll see. But can we get some clarity on the running backs? So you've got Chase Edmonds, who got the big deal to come over, but then you've got Raheem Mostert, who I love. When healthy, Raheem Mostert can play. And obviously reunited, Mike McDaniel coming over from San Francisco, his former running back. And so they've also got Sony Michel in the house there. So how that running back situation shakes out, that's pretty interesting to me in Miami, and what the usage is there. We talked about Kansas City already. You're hearing a lot of buzz about guys like Sky Moore. Do you see anything there? Would love to get some look at the Dallas offense beyond the obvious guys. Right. So like Jalen Tolbert, somebody that I'm really excited about, the rookie wide receiver. Do we see him? Because again, no Cedric Wilson, no Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup banged up. So somebody's going to catch passes besides CeeDee Lamb in that offense. Who is it? I'm putting my money on Tolbert at the moment, but I think it's interesting. So that's what you're hoping for, is can you get some clarity on some stuff? I think a lot of people, we go back to that Thursday night game, the Hall of Fame game, and it raised a lot of eyebrows that Josh Jacobs got no Derek Carr, no Devontae Adams, but Josh Jacobs is getting carries the first 2 series. And you're kind of like, first game of the preseason and he's getting this much work? Like, I think that certainly raised some eyebrows in terms of, so it's Michael, it's not just usage, but it's, do they get used, and how do they get used? Who are they on the field with? So, I mean, like, do you feel better or worse about Josh Jacobs after seeing him with, in essence, the second team last week?
Yeah.
I feel worse.
Listen, I mean, his head coach made me feel worse the moment he got hired. I like Josh McDaniels a lot as a coach and as an offensive mind, but we know the running back games that he played for a lot of years in New England. So, you can't. I don't know if you can count on any Raiders running back to be a bell cow week in or week out.
Yeah, and to that point, by the way, there's rumors that perhaps speaking of Patriots running backs, that Damian Harris is on the trade block. And so that's pretty interesting because I love Ramondre Stevenson. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And if Damian Harris were, for whatever reason, no longer on the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson would be a top 20 fantasy running back. Like that's going to be a run first offense once again. He's a true 3-down back. They've got other guys there. I get it, but Stevenson is great. And so for whatever reason, Damian Harris was on his way out. That's pretty interesting. So to that end, like when the Patriots play, does Damian Harris suddenly get a lot of run early on as sort of a trade
showcase him? Yeah.
So I think, those are all the things you're looking for. And also just, do you get some rookies? Like, do we get to see Trubisky at all? I mean, not Trubisky. Do we get to see Kenny Pickett at all? Right? Do we get to see some of these rookies? Do we, even if Aaron Rodgers isn't out there and he won't be, but what does Christian Watson do? Right? What do some of the rookies do? That's always interesting to see.
Well, man, I think we should leave it there because there's no shortage of storylines, even though, like you said, you don't want to overreact to, first full weekend of preseason. But, I mean, nonetheless, there's going to be plenty to unpack after we see, these teams in action for the first time. You are no rookie. I'm no rookie. It's great to be reunited with you, man. This is just a glimpse of what we're going to be bringing to the Rotoworld Draft Guide Show this coming Wednesday, August 17th, 8 p.m. on Peacock, and every Sunday, helping you set your lineups for fantasy football, helping you win your league. We're not, like you said, we're not trying to help you set your. We're not playing for fun. Okay, we're not playing for second. We're trying to help you win week in and week out and win your league. Matthew Berry, welcome aboard, my friend. It's good to be reunited with you, man. Looking forward to working with you again. And happy for you, man. And let's have some fun.
I appreciate it, Michael. Thanks so much, man. This is going to be great.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.